How should we handle disagreements or conflicts that arise during the sprint review? I mean, I hear about them, but I've never really seen them. Yeah, there are grumbles because a stakeholder doesn't like what the team's done or something, but conflict's quite a strong word. I'm also not talking about people throwing chairs at you or anything as extreme, but disagreements happen. How do we manage them? How do we deal with a conflict that arises in a meeting? Well, it's going to be no different to any other meeting. Okay? As the facilitator, as the person in the room who's responsible for ensuring that this is a productive, positive meeting, that we get what we need to, which in the case of the sprint review is good quality feedback on where to take the product next. Okay? We need to assess this conflict in the moment. Is it worthy of consideration? Okay. I've seen so many people shy away so quickly from conflict, whereas actually just calling it out and just saying, okay, you two seem to disagree about this. However, okay, can we pick it up later because it doesn't seem to be about the product. There seems to be something else going on. When I have had things, that's been the case most of the time. If people who are disagreeing about something that was raised about, I've heard this and you've heard that, and we want to argue about it. Okay, fantastic. Later. Facing into conflict is one of the fastest ways of quelling it. Okay, if you ignore it, it's going to continue. It's going to escalate. So what we as Scrum Masters have to be is brave, is courageous. There's that good old Scrum value coming back of courage. Okay? Face up to it. Acknowledge it. One of the first things you need to do with any conflict is just tell people what you see. Don't add opinions. Don't add bias. Do your best to just say, I can see that Rod and Jane, you're coming from different points, okay? And you're not going to agree, or you're not agreeing. And it's worthwhile in this meeting understanding more. Okay? So if it is worthwhile, give them space to air it. Let them explain their permission without their position, permission, their position without interruption. Okay? And that is actually one of the biggest tricks. Very often people start talking over each other and escalating. What I'm a big fan of is introducing non-violent communication, which in a meeting setting, it may be a bit much to start explaining it, but it can be very important. Just saying, I want to hear facts. I don't want to hear your bias. I don't want you to talk about how other people feel or how they think. Talk about your own feelings, your own thoughts. Okay? When Rod said this, I felt that is okay. Rod feels this, Rod thought that is not. You don't know. You are not that person. That way, actually, tensions tend to simmer down a bit, don't necessarily go away, but at least we can have that conversation. Well, this is what I'm talking about, and this and this and this, and this is where I see it going. Okay, see, well, this, and this, and I see it going that way. Okay, these do seem to be different to each other. We need to assess still, okay, we've got it out in the open. Is it a thing to bring up now? Is it worthwhile talking about in the review? Or again, can we park it till later? If it is, and this is very often where stakeholders disagree on direction, okay? They're not aligned. They don't understand. Well, now we need to start pulling in the key things. Things like the product vision, the current goal for the product. Okay, how do these differing opinions align to that, our North Star as a team? Okay? But keep the conversation going. Keep ensuring that people have equal opportunities to talk, to be heard. Okay? Because very often conflicts come about not because people are bad actors, not because they don't like each other or they're trying to be difficult, but because they're frustrated or they're misunderstood or they're bothered that something's going to happen or they're scared that something's going to happen. And being heard and reassured that we understand that. Yes, thank you, that's really good, glad to know it. Okay, we hadn't thought of that, or if we had, yes, we have thought of that, and this is why. Inviting people into the conversation. As the facilitator in the middle of this, it can be difficult. You can really feel put upon in the moment. So please remember, breathe. Just take a moment. Don't worry, they're not going to notice. Okay? When everything calms down, if you just need a second, big breath in, big breath out, and take the next action. Did they say something that you believe developers have something to say about? If so, ask the developers if they do. If somebody else does, what do they think? This is standard conflict navigation. There's nothing different in a sprint review when conflict arises. Most of the conflicts I've come across, as I said, they're grumbles. There's not a lot to them. They've just not been heard and they want their voice heard. Okay, give them that space. That is, and be honest, as a facilitator, on me. I didn't recognize that they didn't feel equal voice. Give them that opportunity to be heard, and the problem goes away. The other things are where people have different information. They're acting from incomplete data sets. One party believes something's going to happen because they don't know what the other party knows, and vice versa. So bringing that out, giving it a place within the room, let people set out everything that they understand to be true and see, do they match? Do they not? And if they don't, why don't they? Where's that information come from? What we're often doing here is very, very simple, getting people to talk without emotion, which is very simple and very hard, as is a lot of what we do. But finding that piece, finding that is not necessary all the time. Sometimes the conflict isn't about the topic of the review. Okay? And we do need to facilitate it. We do need to navigate that conflict. But do we need to do it now? Only if it's going to be to the detriment of the meeting or it's actually relevant to the discussion at hand. Do people disagree on what we're trying to achieve? That's worthwhile because in there's going to be most likely a third way. Okay? And that's what we're looking for. We're reminding people that everybody's here with good intentions. They're all trying to do a good job. And we're all imperfect humans with imperfect information. By having the conversation, we can increase the amount of information, we can ensure everybody's in line, and likely end up in a better place than we started. So please, whatever you do, if conflict does arise in a sprint review, as a Scrum Master, don't shy away from it. Step up and tackle it head on. It's not as scary as it might seem. It is like, I always think, when I was small and being sat on a bike at the top of a very steep hill and being petrified of going down. And as soon as I went down, I loved it. I'm not going to promise you loving conflict navigation, but it's much simpler. It's much easier once we get started than all of the apprehension that we build up before we do.